Ray, you remember the one mode that was put in at the last second that we couldn't ship, which we had a PvP mode.
In the 23 years since it was first released, the Phantom Menace game has become a favorite among Star Wars fans. I was lucky enough to sit down with the game's developers to talk about the making of Episode 1, the game. Mike Ebert and Ray West are veteran game developers. Mike was the co-founder of Big Ape Production, the game studio who developed the Phantom Menace game. He served as both the project lead and level designer. Meanwhile, Ray was the 3D modeler and animator on this project. This is the second part of my interview with Mike and Ray, and this time we talk about the content they had to cut and the overall development cycle. I started by asking the guys about the early days of development, and as it turns out, the Phantom Menace actually started life as a completely different game.
We were just going to make some sort of Star Wars sort of RP light adventure, because we'd done, if you know, our earlier work with Herc's Adventures was this giant 52 level Hercules adventure game, and then we'd done Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which was also just this massive long sort of arcadey adventure game versus monsters. So we in that sort of mode, and we thought, wow, it'd be really cool just to do a big Star Wars adventure game.
And then things changed significantly when the Phantom Menace license dropped on it. Like, I remember my first month was just sort of learning how to create dudes in 3D using as minimal polys as possible. And then shortly after that, they started, this was going to be like the first 3D accelerated game that a lot, like back in 99, 98, 97, that's when 3D accelerators were sort of hitting the market and going mainstream. And it was like Dean, who's our lead programmer as well, would be coming in with these sort of metrics as to how the game was running, and was like, all right, Ray, start blowing polys. You know, we can actually run a lot more polys than we had thought. The first guy I built ever was, I think, Jabba's in the pit in the Mos Espa level. He was the big giant dude that was going to kill you. And he's sadly low poly. I should have really gone back as the game went on and boosted his poly count.
The specs on the game kind of changed as we built it, because Ray was right. We were going to build this for the first early monster cards, 3D accelerated cards. And then that was taken off the plate after we started working on it. They said this now has to run in PC software without a 3D accelerator, which totally changed our camera angle, because the camera angle was a little more less top down when we started, and then as we lost the 3D accelerator, we had to start going top down and render fewer polys and stuff. So there was constant changing stats for this project. And then the whole PS1 thing, it was supposed to be on the PS2, and then the PS2 is delayed, so now it's getting ported to the PS1.
Yeah, that was actually done internally at LucasArts. There were a handful of programmers that were there that was an unenviable task. It really...
they were under a lot of mental stress to somehow get our PC game to run on the PlayStation 1.
So, as it turns out, there was actually an unfinished game mode that never made it into the final release.
Ray, you remember the one mode that was put in at the last second that we couldn't ship, which we had a PvP mode.
Yeah. Oh,
and
actually,
that was hilarious.
It just so happens I shouldn't do this, but I made. Is now a good time to do it? I'm going to do it.
Are you telling me you have a functional version?
Let's find out. So here it is. This is the tool. I don't know if this is showing.
I'm more amazed that the tool actually runs.
I know, me too. I actually can't get it to run live. So this is the Big Ape Productions map tool that was built. It's running in like VGA format from long ago. I couldn't believe that I still had it, A, and B, when I tried to launch it, it actually worked. But the only one I could get to run is the actual net version. The networked version of the game actually runs. I can actually load all of the old files here. Like if we wanted to look at like the Fed chip, or, you know.
So with Ray's doing this, I'll explain one thing. Because we were an old Super Nintendo team, we built this game a lot like a Super Nintendo game. It was all built with little three-dimensional cubes that you could stack together and assemble maps, much the way you do sprites and stuff in a Nintendo game. And the one aspect of that was our advantage was that we could make massive levels cheaply, which actually turned out to be a disadvantage when they had to port it to the
Right.
PS1. But on the PC, we could just make endless levels with this thing
Right.
because of the nature of the setup.
Yeah, like this particular, like I don't know if you could see this well, but this particular cube is something that is made up of a series of polys. Over here on this side shows you, I think I can rotate it around. And each one of these has a different set of polys. You could tell the low res version of this, but hey, but it's like this is how we built the whole thing. So then once this piece is created with these 6 polys, we could duplicate this multiple times throughout the level and could, make, each one of there, you could see the whole palette of different.
Yeah, those are all of the pieces we have available. That's
Yeah.
what really took up the memory, is the library of pieces. The actual data to stamp them down is cheap, so you could just make insanely large maps as long as they only use that library of pieces.
Each one of these placements over here, it would show which model, which of the AI modules to you. Like if I click on this, I think I can.
Yeah,
AI
this little scripting language was actually very cool. We had one of the programmers from Toe Jam and Earl, the old Super Sega game, actually build this language for us. He needed some work, and for a few months we said, hey, build us a little AI programming language. And it's all, the nice thing about it's all pull down menus, so you can't make a typo. And that's really all we were trying to do, is eliminate syntax errors of people typing stuff in. So you just quickly put down your commands, pull down the options, and set up your AIs.
I was really interested to know just how far into development did they get with the multiplayer mode?
I mean, if we could have had even maybe one extra month, we probably could have shipped with that network game, because that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is one of the game levels that we just threw together in no time. But yeah, this was a lot of rockets were launched in this map against other people. It was LAN only. It was going to be 4. Then you start getting into the LucasArts is going to ask questions about what's the fiction of it? What's the, so it's like,
One of the things that really stood out to me about the game was this part really early on, when you can have ObiWan just walk into the giant fan blade and then just get cut into like a dozen pieces. So I asked Ray if he was the one who animated ObiWan in a blender.
No, and there's a great story behind this. That actually turned out to be our programmers, because we were using the Jedi Knight engine. Each of the way that each model was built was a series of, instead of like being skinned, like everything nowadays is vertex animated, skin stuff to bones. Back then, everything was sort of, you have a upper arm object and you have a forearm object, and you just would link them together. It's like, okay, hand is linked to this, it's linked to this. So our engineers sort of came up with well, why don't we just have something where you could just remove all the links and just randomly animate this stuff that happens? Because we also talked briefly about being able to amputate stuff with a lightsaber. And so I have to talk about this story. This is one of my favorite stories. So we're actually playing with, well, geez, could we actually just, if it detects, like we knew we wanted it for like some of the battle droid animations, that if you were able to make impact with something, why not let them get injured to get one of their arms hacked off and so forth? But because humans and other aliens were built using the same systems, as soon as someone figured out that you could turn it on, they turned it on for everything. And so Obi's walking through Mos Espa, just lopping off arms. That would just be like a thing that would happen as part of their death animation. So like a limb would come off as they're dying. The thing that actually put a full end to that, and we actually, I can't remember what we did if we had to go, was then in Mos Espa, there were kids, and the swing that you did with Qui-Gon's sword right at neck height. And so this automated system would lop these kids' heads off, and they'd go spinning it around. I think LucasArts saw that.
Yeah, and that was like, the end of it.
That was the end of it. It was like, oh, and if only we had prevented that from, but it was like for a hot minute, everyone wanted to do it. It was like, okay, I need to run this animation with Qui-Gon anyway. But that system of breaking everything apart, sort of, that was the few instances in which we said, okay, let's still use that, but only on very specific instances. There was also, you know what? I just remembered. I think there was for a week, we had blood as well. And then I think both of those things together. So there was this Qui-Gon swings, patch of blood, this head comes off, and it's like, that's it. Thank you. That's enough of that.
Yeah, it's also, I was going to say that it's important to note too that given the rushed schedule and secrecy of this, there was almost no play tests, or we didn't put it in front of people and say, what do you think? It was just being built and planned to be shipped out. I don't even remember there being, I know there was playtesting for bugs, but besides that, I don't think difficulty level or any of that stuff got tested.
I don't remember any user research stuff coming, at least none of it that was shared with us. I guess it's possible that LucasArts had their own internal stuff.
Typically do that much, because I know, having worked on multiple products with them before, that they hadn't gotten, it was still early stages for that company. They pretty much had been building a lot of the point and click adventure games. And as they started to branch out of that, they did need to start, testing user research stuff with difficulty, but it hadn't really ramped up much.
So there was also a level the guys had to cut from the final game.
There was actually, I tried to start building a level that would have been almost like a DLC thing. I don't even think Mike knows about this. I was trying to build it would be unfortunately be a Jar Jar level, but it would be the Gungan battle droid attack thing. I was trying to figure out a way to do it. I had a version of the game running, and I may even have it, but I don't think it was very far along because I couldn't figure out.
That's right. I forgot that we didn't have that scene in there. I think I remember you working on it, but we just ran out of time.
Yeah, it was
just a big missing scene.
Yeah, we realized that the big Gungan battle could have been, my God, it's an opportunity for action. We have to put it in. And then it was like, yes, and like we had built the MTTs, we had built the AATs, we had 10,000 Gungan Kadus, and we had all the bits and pieces. We just didn't have a level for them to run around in. But again, what would be the gameplay? What would that look like? And could we throw it together in a month? No.
A huge thanks to both Mike and Ray for their time. And if you'd like to thank the guys personally, then feel free to send them a tweet. Also, a special thanks to Ray for providing me the screenshots of the development assets. And finally, a big thanks to the entire team at Big Ape for their passion and dedication to the project. Please leave a comment and let the guys know about your experiences and memories with the game, and just generally what the Phantom Menace game meant to you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and follow me on Twitter. See you next time.